So, Farah, please, you introduce Shweta madam.
Okay. So, good evening, students. She's your teacher. She's going to teach you about crime theory, and she have done psychology in forensic, masters in forensic. Right, Shweta?
Masters in criminology, ma'am.
Masters in criminology, and now she will introduce herself with others. Shweta, can you please tell them a little bit about yourself?
Yes, sure, ma'am. Good evening to one and all. I am Shweta Sadanandan, and I'm currently working as an assistant professor at Parul University. I have done my master's in criminology, and today we will be concentrating on crime theories. So can I start my class, sir?
Yes, you can start the class now.
Okay, I'll be sharing my PPT. Just a second. I'm still not able to share the PPT.
Okay, I'm making you host now.
Okay, sir.
Oh, এটা প্রিয়রঞ্জন চলে গেল। Hello, Priyaranjan. Please you make Shweta as host. Hello, Priyaranjan. Yeah,
Yes.
thank you. Shweta, now you can start.
Yes, sir. So, as human beings, we are part of a society, and therefore we create certain laws and regulations depending on what are the general norms, what we are expected to do as humans in a social context. And therefore, we create certain rules and regulations. And when these rules and regulations are, what do we say? When we break these rules and regulations. So, do you know what we what happens generally if we break rules and regulations? Can any one of you say? Yes, Ashmita.
There are fines or consequences or some sort of punishment that we get.
Correct. So basically, when we are, like you said, we have certain punishments and certain fines that we can get, depending on what extent of, what extent of regulations that we have disregarded. So when we talk, and in general, whatever is prescribed in India under CRPC or IPC, whatever crime we have, whatever rules or regulations that we are breaking will be defined as a crime. So even if it's a theft to a murder, both are crime, right? So when we're talking about any deviance that we are creating, that anything that is distracted, that is away from the norm, away from something that is expected from us, would all come under delinquency. And also in certain cases, when we are breaking the laws that is created by the society, then we can call it crime or certain criminal activities or criminal behavior that we are committing. So as criminologists, and many criminologists are interested to understand what makes these behavior different, or what is differentiating us normal individuals from a criminal individual, right? So if we take into context, we all have thought about some or the other criminal intention to some extent. Like, for example, if you are angry with somebody, have you ever thought of hitting someone in your mind, at least? I would like your participation.
Yes.
So basically, have you hit that person? If you have thought of it, have you hit the person?
No.
So why? The why is the reason what criminologists are finding. What behavior differences are there between you and somebody who would act upon that impulse to hit somebody, right? So So that's why there are different theories. So there is a huge debate going on in criminology about the the nature and nurture debate. So is it something that we have, is criminal tendency something that we find because of the nature that we live in, that is because of our environment, or because with the way we are nurtured, or because of the way we are brought up, or because of the sorry, when I talk about nature, sorry, I'm misconstrued it. When we talk about nature, it talks about the way we have been born. Is it something the way we are? Or when we talk about nurture, is it the environmental determinants that fixes or that decides what we are, or what it decides the criminal tendencies? So today we will be looking in crime theories. We will be talking about sociological theory and biological theory. So is it some of the criminologists, sociologists have claimed that some of the sociological theories could be the reasons why we commit crime, and there could be and some of the theorists claim that it could be biological reasons, and they have given each one of them have given some of the theories which are very popular in criminology and when we talk about crime statistics. And this will help you to understand in context of research, when you want to do certain research of certain populations, these theories could help you. Just a second. Sorry. So these theories could help you in understanding or in creating certain research models also. So first, let's discuss about sociological theory. Like the word itself claims, sociological. What environmental factors are determining the criminal tendencies? So first, we will be learning about social disorganization theory. So basically, this theory claims that what external factors or are tendencies that are influenced by the external factors define the idea of how we can define how law breaking can be defined. So basically, when individuals who are like in our general environment, when we talk about our ecological environment, how living organisms live and they maintain their life, and the whole process of development and adaptation take place in an environment. Similarly, when we talk about when we talk about a society, the social disorganization theorists have took the same pattern that is seen in the ecology and adapted it to the society, basically describing that how certain society, how in society there is a formation of concentric zones which radiates from the city center, and then different zones are created based on our economic characteristic as well as our social circumstances. So the zone that the social disorganization theorist claim would look something like this. So in the center would be the central business district, the CBD. So basically, the central business district would be the best piece of land in the city, and it is the most expensive place. And when this area is developed, around this area, there are other areas that develop in a city. And these, as we go further away from the city, it is the best, it is more organized and a calm area, serene area. But as we see around the central business district, around the one, we can see the area of transition zone, which is, according to the social disorganization theory, is the most problematic zone. Around this zone, we will find deteriorated housing, factories, abandoned buildings, which create more and more criminal activities. And as we go further away, it is a place that is more organized. So you can see as we go to the third zone, it is more working class zone, and then we go to fourth, residential zone and commuter zone, suburb areas basically. So when we are talking about working class zone and residential zone, you can understand that if a person is in a working class zone, they have certain kind of income, they have their social status is defined, and they can live with that income. So they do not naturally tend towards committing crime. And even in residential zone, it's still far better. And in suburbs also, the places are cheaper because it's not in the city center, and thereby creating more creating more areas of peace and tranquility and organization also. So the most problematic zone that we talk about is transitional zone. So the zone of transition is a focal concern because it is a very inexpensive area and it is near to the work for people. And mostly you can see in this transitional zone the immigrants who come from the other background, mostly are the people who settle in these areas. So when we talk, so as we say, according to some of the official stats that we have collected, it is completely an area where immigrants stay, and since it is much easier for them to work in the central business district, and also sometimes depending on their situation, since they are in a community, they are more weaker financially, economically. Therefore, because of their general situation, they might fall into a pattern of committing crime because of the situations. And also in general, the health is also um, much poorer in such areas. So like the manifestation of problems such as these was explained by social ecologists as being result of breakdown of primary social relationships in this area with highly mobile and transitory nature of social life. Since they are more immigrants, the life there is more mobile. They don't stay in one zone, and therefore, and the social relationships are also weaker, and therefore the tendency to commit crime. So what happens, since industrialization and urbanization creates a large amount of immigrants to come in and settle in these places, and the norms and values of these immigrants, these people who migrate from other places, would be different from the norms and values that are organized in this particular zone. So what happens when you break down these traditional norms and values is what we get, what we can call as social disorganization. So when other people come and settle in, these norms and values differ and change and become vivid, and thereby creating a social disorganization in this zone of transition. And so social conditions in the city can be much better, but for the first generation of immigrants, they have to adapt to the new city life. They have to maintain their status. They have to survive in this situation, and thereby this creates a situation where they become impersonal and their identity become fragmented. Any doubts so far?
Clear, ma'am.
I'll go ahead.
Yes.
So we have what criminologists have claimed to be labeling theory. Now, when we talk about labeling theory, like the name suggests itself, the labels that we attach to individuals, right? That could be really harmful. So labeling theory basically talks about when someone commits, if not necessarily a crime, even if someone commits a deviant activity in the sense that something we expect as a society, we expect certain way of living. We have certain rules and regulations, and we have certain normal behavior that we have fixed upon. Anything that deviates from the norm will become the deviant behavior. And therefore, any such behavior that is labeled or, say, suppose defined as deviant behavior can create a negative stereotype in the person, what we call as stigma in psychology and in other terms. And this can get attached to the person, and that person can feel that, okay, I have been labeled so and so, and therefore they might try to address that labeling and to follow that labeling. So a simple example that could be given is, say, suppose a child who whose parents might have, or say suppose whose father might have been a thief at some point. Now this child, even if has even if gets an opportunity to live in a good situation, and even if his father is reformed and not into activities, into criminal activities, still this child would be called names like your father is a thief, or he himself might be called thief or son of a thief. All of these labels that we attach, basically. So these labels can have a negative impact on that child, because even if the child is a proper person, even if the child is not committing any crime, the continuous thought that someone assumes that I am still a thief can lead them to go into that path. Correct. So basically, when Howard Becker gave this labeling theory, when Becker gave this theory, he had tried to address two of the concerns. That is, how particular behavior is labeled as deviant, and how this can how a concern, and how this can be understood as an impact through the labeling process. So how it impacts an individual when you label somebody, and how this behavior is labeled as deviant also. So what is described as deviant, and according to him, as Becker states, social groups create deviance by making rules whose infraction constitutes deviance, and by applying those rules to particular people and labeling them as outsiders. From this point of view, deviance is not a quality of the act of the person commits, but rather a consequences of application by others of rules and sanctions to an offender. The deviant is one to whom that label has been successfully applied. Deviant behavior is behavior that people so label. So basically, Becker claims that when a social group creates rules and regulations, and when there is any infraction, or when there is any rule breaking in that constituent, or in that rules and regulations, then applying these rules and regulation to a particular people, and they are labeled as outsiders. Okay, so from when we label that person as an outsider, this labeling is created by people who are in a higher positions, who have authority to sanction these outsiders as offenders, and thereby they are successfully applying this label to the person. So basically, the person to whom this is applied will become the person. So this deviant behavior is the behavior that the people so label. So basically, anyone in the higher authority, or anyone who sanctions such rules, is labeling the person as deviant. So these two aspects were discovered, or was the main reason why what Becker wanted to explore when he talked about the labeling process. So again, labeling theory has been debated. It's critiqued a lot because it seems to be very vague, simplistic, and ideological, according to some of the other theorists, and therefore it can be distinguished. It has come under a lot of critique. And when we talk about a research aspect, there could be a lot of ways in which labeling theory, we can try out labeling theory or social disorganization theory in our research ideas. So basically, we can take certain groups, or we can take, say, suppose habitual offenders. Do you know what habitual offenders, who habitual offenders are?
No, ma'am.
So basically, basically, an individual who has a habit of committing the crime. Say, suppose, according to Habitual Offenders Act, according to our law, it is a bit different. But someone who has, committed a certain crime and got the thrill of committing that crime, and they often commit that crime again and again. And when we are talking about habitual offenders, we are not talking about serial killers or mass murderers, not them. We are talking about petty crimes that are being committed again and again. So what happens in generally a thief, if they are committing a crime of, say, suppose, uh, they're committing a crime of robbery or say extortion, suppose. The punishment that is given to them, depending on the nature of the crime, is comparatively lesser than the other punishment for any other heinous crimes, right? So what happens is, when these individuals, say, suppose, commit a crime, after serving 1 or 2 years, 1 or 3 years in prison, they'll come back to the society, right? Then, due to the thrill that they have achieved by committing that crime, they might commit the crime again. So the circle of committing the crime again and again due to their habit, and they're also, as you go on committing the crime again and again, you also become a professional, in the sense that you get an idea how to not be caught and how to not be how to not be caught, and how to be a professional in carrying out the robbery or thieving. So basically, when we talk about labeling theory, can we distinguish whether these habitual offenders were committing crime because they were labeled initially as thieves, or whether there was any other element that was that made them commit the crime, whether, like, the thrill that we talked about. So these could be some of the research ideas that we can explore when we talk about labeling theory. To keep, we can go to the police organizations and ask them for data of habitual offenders, and thereby get some data. And if we can track these individuals, or we can track the individuals who are currently in the prison, and thereby who are in the prison under the Habitual Offenders Act, and thereby understand whether what might have created their their series of offenses. Even after being caught, why would they commit the crime again? So to understand that, whether labeling theory was a part of such cause of such act, because of that cause of such criminal behavior. Or even when we talk about social disorganization theory also, we can learn about how in certain areas the crime rates are very high, and in certain areas the crime rates are very low. So can we apply social disorganization theories in such context? Because we have often heard that you might have heard this word from your parents, from someone else, that don't go to that particular area, it is very shady and it is not safe. So what is defining these places as safe and shady, unsafe and shady, and what is defining the place that you live or in any other area safer? So can we apply the concentric zone theories to these areas and understand, taking out the crime rates that is probably available in open sources like national crime record bureaus, or any other information published by even police and Bureau of Police and Research or Development, BPRD. And then we have strain theory. So far so good?
Yes, ma'am.
Then we have strain theory. So basically, it was given by Robert Merton. So he claimed that when there is a tension between legitimate and illegitimate means to access or to understand the norms and values in the society, it results in a deviancy. So basically, it says that when an individual is given an opportunity, say suppose, the opportunity for certain classes are different and the opportunity for weaker classes, middle class and higher class is different, and certain opportunities for weaker classes are different. So basically, strain theory is claiming that crime is function of this conflict between the people who have less access, who have non-achievement for their desired legitimacy, and therefore, in order to achieve this goal that they have, whatever means that they choose can be can result in deviant or criminal behavior. So basically, in any society, so even if it's a weaker section, even if it's a economically higher section, both have certain goals, and both goals can be the same, right? But the means of achieving it, the situation that is formed or that is given to the individuals are different. So the opportunity that I receive might not be the same as the opportunity that you receive, because of the certain privileges that might exist between the two of us, the both of us, right? So therefore, when we talk about strain theory, it is talking about how these goals are achieved. But the means by which these goals are achieved can be termed as something that is deviating from the normal behavior. So according to him, he has created typology where he said that people who accepted the norms and values and in order to achieve their goals were known as conformist. So whoever follows the rules and regulations as given by the society without questioning it and following it as it is, so they are called the conformist. And those people who reject these rules and norms and values in the society are called rebellious. So basically, it is indicating how the structure of the society itself is producing a deviant behavior rather than any other situations. So the structure, the levels that is created in the society is deciding whether the person will become deviant or not. So this deviancy would be again defined by the tendency to achieve the means of their goals. Then we have differential association theory. So according to Sutherland, so Sutherland gave this theory of differential association. So according to him, any behavior that we have learned, any behavior is something that we learn from others. So we learn from our society, from our environment, from our peer groups, from our families. So he had given around around 9 points about what a differential association theory is. So basically, he claimed that criminal behavior is something that we learn from learn. So it is something that we acquire from our interactions with the people when we are communicating with them. So the principal part of the learning criminal behavior occurs within intimate personal groups. So it doesn't happen with someone whom you're not intimately interacting with. It happens with the group that you're very much in contact with all the time and very intimately related to. So when criminal behavior is learned, the learning will include committing the crime. So basically, learning the techniques of committing the crime. So from very simple behavior to very complicated behavior over the period of time. As we are going through the process, over the period of time, the behavior can become from very simple to very complicated techniques. So you can understand certain direction of motives, drives, rationalizations, and attitudes. So this can be explained with a really good example. That is, say suppose a group of 5 friends, and in this 5 friends, one of the friend is suppose new to this group. The other 4 are into the other 4 individuals are into doing certain small parts of vandalism, uh, creating nuisance, all of that. Okay, so this one person who is new to the group, initially, say, suppose if these 4 people would say that, okay, we are going to this particular place and we are going to destroy the property by, say, suppose, spray painting the property. So this new individual will think, okay, it is not a harmful thing, and they might participate with them in destroying that property by doing graffiti on the walls of someone or something like that. And this person has participated in it. So initially that person would start by thinking that, okay, this is not that harmful. And slowly and steadily, as the person becomes part of this group, they will learn a lot from this other 4 individuals by being part of that group, right? Because you're spending, this person is spending the time, all the time with these individuals in school, and so, say, suppose after school. So what happens is, initially what they might think as a non-destructive, uh, not so harmful behavior can slowly and steadily become something that is drastically complicated and very much, what do we say, against the law. And also it can, again, like it's mentioned here, the drives and motives that is learned will also be surrounded by what you perceive the legal code as. Is it favorable or unfavorable? Like I said, this person, say, suppose X, while the other 4 individuals are destroying a property, might not think it as a criminal activity, so therefore participate in that. But later on, as this individuals go on and about, from smaller activities to high profile criminal activities, this individual might, out of peer pressure, or just because being part of that group, can slowly and steadily become favorable in committing these crimes. So a person becomes delinquent because of, again, like we said, what is favorable violation of law over the definition of unfavorable violation of law. So how this individual defines what is favorable in terms of violation of law and what is unfavorable in terms of violation of law. And differential association, again, may vary in frequency, duration, priority, and intensity. When we talk about frequency, how often are these individuals committing the crime? Say, suppose, taking this previous example itself. So initially it might be, the group might be committing some form of vandalism, say, suppose, in one house per week. But slowly and steadily, as the amount increases, as the time increases, and their priority and intensity increases, the crime also the criminal activity and the criminal behavior and the intention also increases. The process of learning criminal behavior by association with criminal and anti-criminal pattern involve all of the mechanisms that are involved in any other learning. So basically, any other learning that takes place in an individual, the way you are learning right now, the process, you're listening, you're hearing, and you're processing all of it, processing the information, and then you probably write your exams, and you will note down all of these things. So in that similar process, the criminal behavior is also being learned. So the person X, by seeing the other 4 peers acting out and all of that, would observe them and learn that activity as you are learning in generally in your life. So the learning process remains the same, whether it is criminal behavior, whether it is non-criminal behavior. So while criminal behavior is an expression of general needs and values, it cannot be explained by those needs and values, since non-criminal behavior is an expression of the same needs and values. Again, how can you define what makes you not to commit a certain crime, but for others to also follow up that intention, follow that impulse? Then we are coming to biological theories. Do you have any idea what biological theories might be?
Based on genetics and maybe physiological defects that might be there in a person.
So we do not have anybody to take the minutes. Nice.
Correct. So defined on our genetics, defined on how we were born, and all of that would come under biological theories. So this theory, we have, what do we say? So according to Charles Darwin, you all might be familiar with Charles Darwin's theory, where survival of the fittest. So basically, our human genetics can be something that defines criminality, is the basic idea of biological theorists. So how, what do we say? How can we, the environment is not only the factor that influences, but the biological aspects that a human being goes through is also a reason for their behavior, reason for their specifically criminal behavior. So in connection with the development of theory of heredity, a new statistical method devised by Francis Galton and students to measure the degree of resemblance or correlation was developed. Charles Goring used these new statistical techniques in analysis of criminality, arriving into conclusion that crime is inherited in much the same way as ordinary physical traits and features. So in all of these statistical methods and theories, it was found that, according to Charles Goring, it was found that these theories, criminality or the criminal tendencies are as common as we talk about physical traits and features and are inherited in the similar way. So like we talk about Charles Darwin's theory, work. So these theories, biological theories, have been influenced by some of his works given by Charles Darwin. The basic concepts that concepts of evolution, selection, survival of the fittest, and all of that is connected to the biological theories. So again, chromosomes and crime. How chromosomes in an individual define a criminal tendency? How is crime related to chromosomes? So in general, we know the basics, where males have one X and one Y chromosome, and so they become XY. They have XY chromosome, and normal females have two X chromosomes. So females do not have a Y chromosome in them, so they have two X. So it's XX chromosomes, and again, this XX and XY chromosome defines or determines the sex of the individual, biological sex of an individual while they are being conceived. So any person with a normal Y chromosome, females never, person with normal male characteristic always have Y chromosome, and females do not have Y chromosome. So again, but in certain conditions, there can be some abnormal combinations or mosaics that can happen. And therefore, some of the individuals might have XXY, and some individuals therefore might think that since they have double XY chromosome in them, they might think that they are females, even if they are brought up as, say, suppose males. And conversely, the same is possible for males also, who are brought up as males, and they might have reservations, and thereby what we talk about sex change operations and so on in the current society. So the recent theory has found that there is presence of XYY chromosomes. So an extra Y chromosomes can, which is called as super male chromosome. So basically, this can create a conflict in an individual, and this can produce over aggressiveness in an individual. So basically, these individuals are found to be more aggressive than the normal XY chromosomes. And this supermale chromosomal syndrome can affect the brain, the limbic system in our brain, and therefore it can, make certain individuals more aggressive, more impulsive towards violence. And because of their genetical makeup, they can this can basically trigger violence, and they can possibly be more violent because of the extra Y chromosomes, according to these theories. Then we have there were some interesting theories that was done in twin and adoption studies, where twins were studied as to understand why, again, when we talk about criminal tendency, as to why one individual can become a criminal and one cannot. So do you have any siblings? You guys have any siblings, or are you the only child?
Ma'am, could you repeat once more?
Do you have any siblings?
No.
Okay. So since it doesn't become since you do not have any siblings, so still you might have observed others who have siblings, correct?
Yes.
So you might have found that one sibling is not exactly the same as the other sibling, right? So why is that happening? Why is that one sibling not the same as the other sibling? Correct. So that is a thing that we have to discuss. Like, not even if they have been brought up in the same family environment situation, mostly similar, not similar genetic makeup, but some of the similar genetic makeup, and still one individual might not be the same as the other individual, even if they were born in the same environment. So in order to understand this phenomena, the investigators had done, in order to understand, criminologists and investigators have tried to understand what happens when we talk about twins. So according to them, it was found that most of the identical twins, when we talk about male, and this experiment was done on male identical twins only. So most of the male adult identical twins, if one of them had a criminal record of imprisonment, if one of them had a record of imprisonment, the other similarly, 77% chances were there that the other was also had the tendency of criminality. Because when we talk about identical twins, they have similar genetic makeup. And when we talk about fraternal twins, they were found if one twin was imprisoned, the other twin had only 12% chance of being imprisoned. So that drastically changes the situation here. So as you can observe, in identical twins, they had more chance of being imprisoned as their twin themselves. While when we talk about fraternal twins, they did not have, they had very less percent of chances of less percent chance of less percent of chance of being being criminals, basically. So again, there was also one more case study wherein 214 pairs of ordinary brothers who were nearest in age were participants, and if one brother had a record of prison, the other matched pair had a prison record in only 8% cases. So what basically they found out was, if their genetic dispositions were similar, like in a twin, the chances of criminality increased. So if one person was committing the crime, the other probably might had 77% chance of committing the crime also. So basically linking that some biological aspects are linked towards crime. And in similar studies, a variety of results have been reported, and many of the studies had been adopted. Many of the studies were studied, many of the studies were researched on and on the same pattern, and it was found out that criminal behavior among identical twins are similar, and there is similarity than criminal behavior in fraternal twins who do not have the same, who have only 50-50 genetic disposition than the twin than the twins. And there were some of the adoption studies also that were carried out when fraternal twins and when identical twins were adopted into two different families. So how these individuals still had the same tendencies, same criminal tendencies, and how the other didn't have, and how even the environment, even if they were both brought up in different environments, they still had similar tendencies. Then there was an interesting study of Jukes and Kalkik family. So heredity as a source of criminality had appeared in two case studies of generations of criminals. When we talk about generations of criminals, means tracing back a lot of criminality from throughout the generations. Who claim to have and their examples included degeneracy and depravity. So only after Lombroso, as you know, is father of criminology, after his book was published, The Criminal Man, a famous case study appeared by Robert Dugdale about the Jukes family. It was a case study of generations of American family, the Jukes, and Robert Dugdale had traced around 1,000 descendants of Ada Juke. So this is not a real name; the name has been changed, and again, so what he found was basically 280 paupers, that is, we can say poor people or poor economic background individuals, 60 thieves, 7 murderers, and 140 criminals, and 40 venereal disease victims, and 50 prostitutes, and various other deviants were found in the family of Jukes. Venereal disease victims or any kind of sexually transmitted disease victims. So basically, when Robert Dugdale traced Jukes' family, it was found out that everyone in this family had some or the other background in certain type of criminality or certain kind of deviant behavior. So basically, proving that criminality can be inherited in an individual. Again, when we talk about these theories, it specifically sparks the debates whether criminality is something that is biological, again, nature, or nurture. Again, it sparks these debates. So according to me, I think both aspects does play a role. So to have some genetical disposition in an individual, and this genetical disposition is triggered by the environment that we are surrounded by. However, these theorists, they deeply believed that only one particular reason is behind the cause of criminality. And in another case of biological theories, we had found that by Henry Goddard of Kallikak family. So basically, this was an interesting situation because this talks about Martin Kallikak, who was a military man, a militia man, and during the American Revolutionary War. And during that war, he had fathered a child out of wedlock. So basically, he was married to someone else, and he had fathered during those war times. He had fathered a child out of a feeble-minded bar wench. That is someone who was serving in a bar, and she was feeble-minded. That is a little innocent and a little mentally challenged person. And a large number of their descendants were feeble-minded or deviant. That is the descendants of Martin Kallikal and this feeble-minded Bawench. Lot of these descendants were also feeble-minded or deviant in their behaviors. So this was traced back again to the offsprings of his marriage to a respectable woman. So this, when he married a respectable woman with when he married a respectable woman, the offsprings of this person, so Martin Kallikak with the respectable women, the offsprings had a very highest morals and mental standards. Whereas when we talk about Martin Kallikak and the feeble-minded Bawench, their offsprings was feeble-minded or deviant. So basically claiming that genetics does play a role. So depending on who your previous generations or who your previous whose descendants you were on. So Goddard took these findings as a proof that real cause of crime is feeble-mindedness or low mentality. And he was the first person to come up with the term moron. So basically, Goddard claimed that feeble-mindedness or low mentality or basically low mental abilities are something that creates that causes crime. It is a very tall claim, but and it is definitely not a accepted theory, because when we talk about feeble-mindedness, because not all criminal activities are done by individuals who are feeble-minded or who have low mentality. And this one case study can, in both the cases carried out by Robert Dugdale as well as Henry Goddard, in both of the cases, these are only one case studies that are proving. They have only took one generations in both of their cases, and these one or two case studies cannot prove that genetic dispositions are the only reason for criminal activities, and claiming that feeble-mindedness or low mentality can be the reason for criminal activities. So I hope there is no more doubts. That's it for today. Do you have any doubts? You can ask me.
Okay, Shweta, any possibility the social learning for the crime occurrence?
So can you repeat the question?
Social learning.
Yes, sir. Social learning.
The Bandura's theory, Bandura's model.
Yes.
So whether that can be explained for the occurrence of the crime.
Yes, sir. Like we talked about.
Nowadays, we are finding that this is the very common cause.
Like we talked in differential association theory. So when we talk about Bandura's theory, it is applicable here because as it is said, criminal behavior is something that we are learning. So according to social Bandura, the famous experiment that he had conducted on Bobo dolls, when kids were when participants who were basically kids who were exposed to certain violent videos, they started hitting the Bobo doll. So basically learning from the environment. So that is very much applicable when we talk about differential association theory.
Okay. So students, it is clear to all of you?
Yes, sir.
Priyaranjan, is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So thank you, Sheta, for your nice coverage. Now I will take the class on the crime in Rabindra's psychotherapy.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Sheta. Ushmita, can you tell something about the Rabindra's psychotherapy? What is the model of Rabindra's psychotherapy?
So we use the postulates and teachings of Rabindranath Tagore and use them in the therapeutic processes to treat different disorders.
In Rabindra's psychotherapy, our consciousness has 3 layers, right? Murto, Rag, and Saraswat. Okay. And the flow of mental images are occurring across the 3 layers. Is it clear? For example, when one individual is stimulated by any stimulus, so that time individual develops some mental image. And that mental image lies at the Murta layer. Later on, that mental image is associated with some emotions. And the mental image is transformed to another image. So mental image 1 now becomes mental image 2 because it is associated with some properties. And this image lies at the Rag layer. And next layer is the Saraswat layer. Saraswat layer means it is the layer of truth. Now, Priyaranjan, can you tell about the story of Valmiki or Ratnakar? Can you remember? Ushmita?
Sorry, sir. I can't.
Ushmita, any idea? Ratnakar Dashu? Valmiki?
No, sir.
Okay. Valmiki Muni composed Ramayana. Okay. And initially he was famous dacoit. Okay. And he was engaged in different types of stealing, different types of criminal activities. Okay. And whatever he collected, he offered all of them to the parents. So in this way, he spent his livelihood. It is usual situation in ancient India. So the interesting point is, when he had learned how to steal the money or belongings from others, or the basic ideas about the stealing behavior that lied in his Murta layer. After that, when he was repeatedly reinforced, it goes to the rag layer of consciousness. And finally, he assumed that I am dacoit and it is my livelihood. Okay. And he had no idea that it is a crime. Okay. That means, though this behavior is crime, but to Balmiki Muni, or to the, at that time, Ratnakar Doshu, he thought that this is not a crime. This was not crime. It is basically the means for livelihood. Okay. So that is the truth, that this is my life and whatever I am collecting, that is for my parents. Once upon a time, he met one sadhu, and sadhu told him that whatever you are doing, this is not good. Then he discussed this issue with the parents. And parents also told him, that is, they had no idea that he was stealing the belongings from others. And they were shocked. And finally, that famous dacoit Ratnakar, he left home and he started meditation. For a long time. And the termites were on her body. He was covered by that different type of termites are bulbic. So he was called Balmiki. So that is the story. This story is common to the modern days also. Because we find that is there are some people, they do not consider stealing as the crime. So they are thinking stealing is just enjoyment, entertainment. Okay. The thing is that when you have learned some faulty things and you considered it as a truth, then there is a chance to commit crime. Okay. So what is important? That is adequate education, adequate development of the values are very much important for prevention of crime. Am I clear, Ashmita, Priyaranjan? Or if you have any question, you can ask me. Rabindranath Tagore, a Nobel Prize winning Indian poet, playwright, and philosopher. He had a strong belief in the power of education and morality to prevent crime. He believed that the root cause of crime lies in ignorance, poverty, and social inequality. And that it can only be prevented through the spread of education and the promotion of morality and ethics. Okay. The behavior which is considered as the crime to others but to me, this is not a crime. So what is crime? Awareness of the crime, that is vital. To Rabindranath Tagore, ignorance leads to accepting superstition. Superstition is a belief in supernatural causality, that one event leads to the cause of another without any natural process linking the two events. It often involves magical thinking, where a person believes that they can influence events or control outcome through specific actions of rituals. Rabindranath Tagore was against superstition. Okay, now there is another factor, that is the superstition. So first factor, Tagore pointed out that is the ignorance. Second factor is the superstition. Sometimes individual committed crime due to the superstition. Tagore composed one poem, Devotar Grass. And in Devotar Grass, he had shown how superstition forced individual to make the criminal activities. Okay. Again, in this poem, you will find not only superstition, but also the ignorance that is also related to the crime. There is another factor that leads to the crime, that is the structural hierarchy. Society has hierarchical structure. The structural hierarchy of society refers to the ways in which power, status, and resources are distributed among different groups and individuals within a society. This hierarchy can have a significant impact on the nature and extent of crime within a society. In societies with high levels of inequality, those at the bottom of the structural hierarchy are often more likely to experience poverty, unemployment, and other social and economic disadvantages that can increase their likelihood of engaging in criminal behavior. At the same time, those at the top of the hierarchy may have more resources and opportunities to engage in white-collar or corporate crimes, such as fraud and embezzlement. Tagore wrote, "দুই বিঘা জমি, অজাত শত্রু, and সামান্য ক্ষতি." So in these three poems, Rabindranath Tagore, he had shown how the power structure, the misuse of power, the structural hierarchy leads to criminal activities. To sum up, we have understood four things. One is the distortion in the flow of images across the layers of consciousness. Or the presence of faulty notions at the Saraswat layer of consciousness. That is the number one. Second one is the ignorance. about what is crime, unawareness about what is crime. Many people have no idea that committing suicide is also a crime. Many people have no idea still in the rural areas that is taking fruits from other gardens. This is a crime. So the unawareness or ignorance about the crime the third point is superstition. In our society, people have different type of superstitions. To follow the superstitions, people make crime. The third point the fourth point is the structural hierarchy. In the structural hierarchy, we find the power. Power plays a critical role. And the crime or criminal activities are played by the people who possessed high level of power and who positioned at the top level of structural hierarchy in the society. So these four factors are contributing to make crime. Another factor Rabindranath Tagore pointed out in the dance drama of Shama, that is the narcissistic attitude. So the individual having very high level of narcissism, there is high possibility to commit some of the criminal activities. So these are the 5 factors. These 5 factors are committing crime. Okay? Is it clear to all of you or any question?
No question, sir.
Okay. Priyoranjan? Is it clear? Priyoranjan, are you here? Okay. Okay, Farah, is it clear?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, so these 5 factors. Please, you do not put these 5 factors. The last one is the narcissism.
Yes, sir.
And Tagore, he criticized the justice system of his time for its reliance on punishment as a means of correcting criminal behavior. Tagore argued that a better approach would be to address the underlying causes of crime, such as poverty and ignorance. He believed that the focus should be on educating individuals and transforming the society rather than solely punishing offenders. So here you can find out that Tagore's views on crime were rooted in his belief in the power of education and morality to prevent it. And his critique of the justice systems focus on punishment as a means of correcting criminal behavior. He believed in a more compassionate and understanding approach to dealing with crime and its causes. Okay. So he was against any sort of punishment, and he considered punishment through the approach of self-awakening. If you study Samanyo Khoti, there you can find out, you will observe that how the king punished his wife, that is a queen, through the self-awakening process. Rabindranath Tagore, he always paid attention to the self-awakening. So this self means the consciousness, and self-awakening means there will be the flow across all the layers of consciousness. This flow of images is in discrete pattern. So the multiple images, they are flowing. This is called quantum consciousness. And some images, they are floating on the surface of consciousness. And some images are lying at the bottom of consciousness. And when the time comes, suddenly the mental images which are lying at the bottom, they tended to move up. And finally, the individual committed crime. Okay? So I am discussing another factor, that is the buoyant force. So if there is any faulty image at the bottom of the consciousness, that faulty image may come an individual may commit crime. So this is again related to the theories of Ravindric psychotherapy. This buoyant force issue. In Ravindric psychotherapy, the mental images are transformed. The attributes of mental images are transformed. And faulty transformation can lead to committing the crime. Is it clear? Or any question?
Clear, sir.
Okay. So Farah, may I close now?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Good night. Now
Sir,
I
thank
am
you.
requesting all of you, please you draw one graphical distribution about the factors influencing crime. Okay. Make some graphics. Okay, good night.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Good night, sir.